All right, so in this video, I want to cover just how to add a root bone to a cat rigged character at a 3ds Max. So here's a character that I have set up. His name's Bob Zombie. He's fully skinned and set up to this cat rig, but the cat rig does not currently have a root bone, and I want to send this to Unreal Engine with a root bone. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly hide my character mesh and have a look at the hierarchy of this rig. So this is just the base human cat rig, and everything is linked back to the pelvis with no root bone. So this base here doesn't export as a root bone. This just holds all the information for the character animation toolkit, cat. So one thing I'll note is once I add a root bone and change the hierarchy, this cat motion layer will no longer work properly. So procedural animations will no longer work if adding a root bone to your cat rig. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to use this anyway, so I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to make sure this is in setup mode. And what I'll do is select everything around the cat rig. And I'm going to open up schematic view real quick just to show you what that looks like. So up here, you'll see this button for schematic view. And I'm going to get rid of this and just have a quick look here. And you can see the entire hierarchy of this cat rig. And there's no root bone. There should be a root bone up here, which the human pelvis bone should be connected to. So we'll go ahead and add that right now. So making sure I'm in setup mode. So in the motion panel, the cat layers are turned off. There's nothing in here. I'll select the pelvis, go to the modify panel, and I'll just add a bone. And this little bone right here, I'm going to go ahead and rename it root. And I'm going to rename it root up here as well. Just make sure its name is root. And I'm going to disconnect this. So I'll click the unlink button up here, unlink selection, and you'll see it move over there. That's fine. I'm going to right click on select and move in the view and reset this to 0, 0, and 0. I'm also going to right click on select and rotate and make sure that is 100% 0. All right, so you can also do this from down here, make sure it's 0, 0, 0, but you need to make sure that root bone is on the ground and centered. The shape of this bone, it doesn't matter at all. So if you want, you can make it 5 by 5 by 5 to make it all the same size, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is this pivot point. This is perfectly centered and on the ground. Z is up. Okay, so X is off to the side, Z is up, Y is back. This is where we need the root bone to be. Now that the root bone is there and it's completely unlinked, I'll go ahead and select all of this again just to keep it highlighted. I'm going to open up the schematic view again, and you can actually just click on the root bone to highlight it over here, and we'll move this over. So I'm going to take my link or connect button in here, and I'm going to drag from the human pelvis up to the root bone, and now we have a root bone on our cat rig. So if I close this and I just select the root bone here, we'll go over to the motion panel, and you can see I don't have an animation layer. So if I move this around, right now the pelvis is not parented, or sorry, it's not inheriting movement when we're in setup mode. But if we add an animation layer and turn it on, when I go to move the root bone, the pelvis is parented to the root bone. So if I turn on auto key, and I was to set a key here at frame 0 and set a key here. So I don't want to have to update the root bone whenever I'm animating this. So example here, if I take the root bone and move it, the pelvis is stuck to it. And in some cases, you don't want this to inherit movement from the root bone. You want the root bone to stay where it is or move it on its own. So if that's the case, we would take this and I'll delete that layer. And you can go into the hierarchy. And with the pelvis selected under bone hierarchy, you'll see animation mode. And you can uncheck inherit position, rotation, and scale. Okay, so if you turn that off, it won't inherit position, rotation, and scale from the root bone in animation mode. So if I go back here and add an animation layer and turn on auto key, you can see that I can animate the pelvis. Let's just hit set key there, move this out to frame 5. And no problem there. If I grab the root bone and animate it, it doesn't affect the pelvis at all. So just wanted to show that real quick. I'm going to delete these keys and then I'm going to show you how to export this. So I'll just get rid of this. So from there, all you need to do is export your character and bring it into Unreal Engine. So I'm just going to unhide my mesh real quick. Open up my Layer Explorer. Make sure nothing's frozen that you're exporting. So I'm going to select my character. And then with everything selected, go up to File, Export Selected, and then choose a location to save this. So I'm just going to save this here. Hit Save. Make sure you have everything you need selected in your FBX. So I'm going to make sure animation is turned on so I get my skins and morphs. And make sure that my units are set to centimeters because we're going to Unreal Engine. So I'm going to click OK. These errors that are coming up in mine, the non-orthogonal matrix support, there's a way to go through and fix this, but these are very small numbers. It's off by like 0.1. And it happens when you're in setup mode and you start rotating the fingers in different parts of the rig. I've never had this affect any animations that I send to Unreal Engine, so I treat this as a false warning. There's a way to fix this where you can create an absolute animation layer, and you can go through and reset the scale on all the bones, and you can get rid of this error, but it's not something I'm concerned about. And this is an old error that's also a false error, this unsupported controller. These are actually supported, and this is stuff we can ignore. So I'm going to click OK. And we now have this exported with the root bone. So I'm going to jump over to Unreal Engine, which I already have open. I have another character here, which is this basic ball character that I've set up in 3ds Max. This one does not have a root bone either. So I'll use this as an example to show how to create a root bone in Unreal Engine. But I'm going to go ahead and import my character that I just sent out of Max. So I'm going to make a new folder in this project, call it B. I'll just call it Bob Zombie, it's his name. And I'm going to right click and import to current folder. So I'm just going to grab my FBX that I exported from Max. And you're just going to want to double check under skeletal meshes here. Okay, so I'm in 5.6 in Unreal Engine. In skeletal meshes, just double check that import skeleton is turned on. Import skeletal meshes. And then I'll go back there and I want to make sure that it creates a physics asset, which I would use for ragdoll effects or any physics on the character. And also double check that you're importing materials. So if you embedded media when you exported the FBX from Max and your materials are all saved properly, it should set this up. So you want to import materials and textures. So just double checking here, we've got import textures. Should create the material. I'm going to click import. And you can see the character is fully textured, it has the material set up. This character has one material ID. If I double click on the skeleton now, we're going to see in here that we have a root bone. All right, so that's perfect. So the root bone is all connected and this guy is ready to go. So I need to change my material to two-sided, but that's a different topic. So I'm going to save this, close it, and I'm going to demonstrate this working inside of Unreal Engine with Mixamo animations. So I'm going to jump over to Mixamo and I'm going to bring in that Bob Zombie character and show that that works as well. Okay, so I am logged into Mixamo. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to characters here. I'm gonna upload a character. So I'm gonna hit select character. It's gonna accept my FBX file. So we'll see if this uploads properly, which it should. Okay, so this is a cat rigged character from 3ds Max with a root bone added. So we'll see what happens with this. Okay, so you can see the characters in here, and I'm going to click next, and we now have the character uploaded to Mixamo. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a zombie walk animation that makes sense for this guy, and I'll try to do this quick. Okay, so we've got this one right here. If I click on in place, he's going to be walking in place, and he should be stuck to that root, which Mixamo does not have a root bone on their characters. So if you download a Mixamo character, you're going to have to add a root bone in Unreal Engine as well. So this one, we already have the root bone. We're going to set it up. I'm going to change the arm space here real quick. And make sure he's not clipping. So yeah, you can adjust all this stuff in here. And we'll just use this for now. So I'm going to click download without skin. We already have the skin. I just want this FBX animation. So I'm going to hit download. And then I'm going to move this to my desktop for now. So I've got that zombie walk, and then I'll go back into Unreal Engine. I'll just leave all this open. And I'm going to create an animations folder where I would save or import all my animations for this character. So I'm going to go ahead and import the current folder, and I will quickly find my zombie walk. Now when I import this, I want to make sure to go to skeletal meshes, and I want to choose my Bob Zombie skeletal mesh. Okay, so I'm going to click import, and if we double click on this, you can see it works. Okay, so there's no problem with this. Everything works, and he should be stuck to the root bone. And I'll do one more demonstration here. I'm going to create an animation blueprint with this character. I'll call it ABP Bob Zombie. And if I double click and open that, okay, so it already used the Bob Zombie character mesh or character skeleton. So I'm just going to throw this in here real quick. Just a sequence. Normally you would put a blend space in here or you create a locomotion state machine, but just to demonstrate, I'm going to throw this in here, hit compile and save. And now if I create a character blueprint, this all works perfectly fine. Okay, if you want that to loop, you'd have to turn on looping animation. So this should be an idle animation, but I'm just trying to demonstrate that it works. So there we go. Okay, so that's the Bob Zombie character, custom character from 3ds Max with the root bones set up in 3ds Max. Now let's check this guy out. So I've got this ball character here, and if I open up the blueprint, you'll see this guy has some basic AI set up. In fact, if I play the game, you're going to see this guy chasing me around here. Okay, so he's got a run animation. He just chases me inside of Unreal. So I'm just going to open up my content folder here. Actually, sorry, I'm going to select him in here and I'll browse to that. I'll just open it up through here. So if I go to my mesh, I can browse to my skeletal mesh and open that up. And if you look in here, so you can see that I'm in this tab right here, the skeletal mesh, and this needs to be enabled. So if you can't find this, the skeleton editor, you need to go to your plugins, and you got to make sure that this is enabled. So Skeletal Mesh Editing Tools, you'd have to check that on. It'll make you restart, but then when you open this back up, it should be opened here. So I can go to the skeleton here and click Edit, and you can see I've got this whole thing set up without adding a root bone back in 3ds Max. So this was just the cat rig exported with no root bone. Okay, the root bone's missing. It's just this hub. So I'm going to expand that, make sure nothing's selected here. And you should be able to right click and create a new bone, which you can then right click on and rename. So I would call this root. And then if you collapse this, you should be able to drag this into the root bone, and now it's nested in there. So you have a new hierarchy, you have a new root bone, which will be at 0. And if I hit accept here, then I would choose merge as the merge type and commit. And now this character also has a root bone, which is at 0, 0. Okay, so you can see it's all connected. And if I save that, this character is updated. If I jump back to my level and hit play, this guy's still running around, so it didn't destroy the animations that were on there, but I would make sure I had that all set up in the beginning, but I just want to show that it functions. Okay, that little slime ball was rigged with cat in 3ds Max, and then I used squash and stretch scale on the bones to get that animation in here. Okay, so just moving forward here, I'm going to throw this animation of this Bob Zombie guy out here and just show again real quick. All this stuff is working perfectly fine. Everything here was rigged with cat in 3ds Max. Okay, so these two characters have a root bone. That little slime guy is a totally different topic, and that's going to wrap up this video. I'll do another video explaining how to import Mixamo characters and retarget them to the existing characters from the templates in Unreal 5.6. All right, hopefully this helps somebody out with Cat and Unreal Engine.